Hello everyone, my name is Renee Robinson and today I'll be teaching you a short high school art lesson focused on creativity and problem solving. We'll explore how creative prompts and constraints can help artists think differently and spark new ideas. In other words, this lesson is about learning how to think creatively when you're faced with artistic challenges or limitations. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand how limits or creative rules can actually help you come up with new ideas. You'll practice problem solving through small creative challenges that push you to think in different ways. To start off, let's go over what a creative constraint even is. So, creative constraints are not limited to anything, really. It is just a rule or limit that forces you to problem solve in a new way. For example, for writers, it would be a word limit. For musicians, it could be only being able to use a certain chord. And artists can use restrictions in color, shape, or tools to spark new ideas. Constraints don't block creativity, they lock it. Let's start with a little challenge. I'm going to draw something recognizable using only 3 straight lines. No curves, no erasing. That's my rule. It's cute. It's a little flag. And it might not be the next Mona Lisa, but I still had to think creatively how to make something out of almost nothing. This is exactly what artists do when they face constraints. They solve creative problems. Let's do 3 more examples, each with a different constraint. Alright, so you can kind of lightly see I have 3 rabbits here. For our first rabbit, we're going to draw it only using circles, rectangles, and triangles. No other organic lines or shapes, like none of this, none of this, just those 3. So to start, it's a little challenging, I'm not gonna lie. The goal is to kind of figure out how to portray a rabbit with only these 3 shapes. And it's not impossible. Like, for example, you could use a circle for the head. You could also use a triangle for the head, though that would be a silly looking rabbit. Rabbits are silly, what am I saying? You can use a rectangle. I will just use a circle for now, and a circle for the eyes. Use a triangle for the little nose here. Shade that in so it's a little easier to see. Or just do this, I guess. Let's see. We'll give him kind of a rectangular body. Little triangle feet. Maybe little triangle whiskers too. Or rectangle whiskers, I can't really. It's not too big of a deal. Okay, let's give him a little rectangle ear here. We'll make the inside of the ear a triangle, and we'll put a little rectangle here. Now, it's not perfect, but it's still a rabbit. The result in the end is definitely something a bit more abstract than a normal rabbit would look, but that's okay, because the end goal with this is to simply convey a rabbit. Now let's switch prompts. This one will be drawing without lifting my pen. Alright, now let's switch prompts. This time without lifting my pencil. Just a little sample here. So this one makes me plan a little bit differently because now I have to figure out how to connect the shapes while still conveying the idea that this is a rabbit. And it seems easy, but it really is here. Do that there. And you can see the rabbit in this. Like, there's the ears, there's the eyes. We can add whiskers in here. Again, it's not about perfection, but rather just conveying the idea and solving the problem, which in this case was just one line drawing of a rabbit. Now, this next one is definitely a bit more of a challenge and will take a bit more time, but for this one, we can draw a rabbit, but we're only using dots, as you see here. So, definitely a lot harder. I will go ahead and start working on it, and I'll talk about it at the end here. Alright, and with that you can see kind of how I have solved the issue, especially in regards of things like showing value and texture without traditional lines. And every rule changes regardless of the approach. You can look at each of these three images here, and you can tell each of them feels different. I mean, obviously, right? Even though they all started from the same idea. That's using multiple approaches. Each constraint pushes you to think in new ideas. When students learn to approach art with different starting points, they build. Nah. When students learn to approach art with different starting points, they build flexibility in their thinking. Art is full of problem solving, deciding what to emphasize, how to use space, or how to adapt when something doesn't go as planned. Practicing with creative constraints build those problem solving muscles. A few more examples of prompts that use constraints would be draw using only triangles, or maybe you could only draw with one specific color, one specific brush, or just a singular marker, all while still trying to convey things like value, line, and composition. Each one is like a mini problem you have to solve through creativity. For example, how do you show movement with only dots? Or how do you make something detailed when you can't lift your pencil? Each prompt encourages a different way of thinking. Now let's take a moment to reflect. Which prompt would challenge you the most? What strategies can you use to solve that challenge? And how might these kinds of exercises help you when you start a larger project like a painting or sculpture? For a take home activity, I'd like you to come up with your own creative constraint, something unique, and make a small piece of art using it. For example, maybe you can use only torn paper, or you can only draw using letters. Along with your artwork, you should write a short reflection explaining what your role was, how it challenged you, and what you learned. This help this will help you connect creativity and problem solving in a more personal way. Today we learned that creativity doesn't just come from freedom. It often comes from challenges. By giving ourselves limits, we're forced to think creatively. By giving ourselves limits, we're forced to think critically and experiment with new ideas. These kinds of exercises help artists grow and prepare for real world creative problem solving. Thank you for joining me in this lesson and happy creating.